So good, so good, so good.
New summer arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off brands like Rag & Bone, Levi's, Adidas, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
This episode is brought to you by Google Chrome. You think you know a browser, but Gemini and Chrome? That's new. It can help you with practically anything on the web, like restoring a vintage motorcycle from a 50-page restoration blog, or finally break down that long article you've had open for weeks. Gemini and Chrome is here for it. Ready to make anything online make sense? There's no place like Chrome. Check responses, setup required, compatibility and availability varies, 18+.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. Today's episode is sponsored by North Carolina's electric cooperatives. I'm joined by my politics team colleagues, democracy reporter Kyle Ingram and higher education reporter Jane Winik Sartwell. And this is like shaping up as of Monday, June 29th at 1:08 p.m. to be the crazy state budget week. We've only been waiting for this for a year. So it looks like all signs are pointing to a document will come out later on Monday. By the time y'all are listening to this Tuesday morning, if it's not out by Tuesday morning, where is it? Give us this budget. We've been waiting long enough. So that's really going to be the news of the week, is what's in it, what's not in it. Is this really the whole year spending bill? Is there going to be more? Is there going to be some new fight? So we'll be reading through those hundreds of pages of exciting government documents to tell everybody what you should know about how they want to spend our tax money. So let's talk about what we do know already, and that is the other big news this past week, and which impacts the legislative session going forward, are veto overrides, which caught, I think, maybe some people off guard with a couple of these bills. And it was all a numbers game of who's in the room and who's not. Kyle, let's start with you about what these overrides were and how this went down.
Yeah, so these bills have been hanging on the House calendar for months now. And Speaker Destin Hall has said, whenever he has the votes, he sees that he has the votes on the floor, he's going to call the question on them. So the bills were three bills that were targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. One of them deals with state and local government, one deals with K through 12 schools, and one deals with higher education. They were able to override all three of those, as well as a bill dealing with immigration enforcement that requires the state to cooperate even further with ICE.
Jane, you're covering higher ed. One of these anti-DEI bills is about higher ed, so break down what this actually does.
Sure. So the law bans DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, in higher ed. Now the UNC system already has a ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher ed, but this bakes that ban into law. So just like the Board of Governors walked back DEI mandates, before this law, it could be that another Board of Governors would change the anti-DEI policy. Now, that pretty much can't happen because it's law that DEI is not allowed in colleges. It also goes a bit further than the policy that was already in place by listing out this list of divisive concepts that include like some concepts like no race or sex is greater than any other race or sex, but other concepts also like that, the United States was created by members of a particular race or sex for the purpose of oppressing members of another race or sex, or things like that, like these concepts that, are no longer allowed to be discussed, basically, or promoted or forced people to endorse.
Who gets to decide what's divisive or not? Or is that part of the legislation?
Yeah, the list is part of the legislation. And that list has appeared elsewhere in other laws before.
Yeah, I believe the same list of, I think it's 12 divisive concepts, is also in the K through 12 bill.
Yeah, I remember at the time it was framed as anti-critical race theory, maybe between a handful and several years ago. I'm trying to remember how many years it was ago, maybe 5 years or something. But a lot of similar language as far as what has kind of long been Republican policy agenda, so, just different versions of it in this bill. But if this is already, so is anything really changing now with higher ed other than you said this is the law now, but if they'd already done this, and what does it look like on the ground practically?
Yeah, so one of the governors told me that this will probably mean that a new policy needs to be enacted that kind of better matches up with the law. But largely, I don't think anything really big is going to change. They might take another look at some of these programs and campuses just to make sure that everything is up to snuff, but it doesn't look like there's going to be major changes.
So it's more looking ahead to, as you were saying, just a different people in charge wanting to change things.
Exactly.
At the university system level, at the legislature, of course, obviously, they can change laws every session. All right, so Kyle, what about the other bills or the other now laws? What do we need to know about those?
Well, so there's the DEI and K-12 education one, which is pretty similar languages to the higher ed one, just applying to all schools. And then there is DEI in state and local government. That one's actually not law yet because it was started in the House. So now that the House has overridden it, it has to go back to the Senate for an override vote.
So we could see that this week?
We could, yes. And that one bans DEI programs or what it calls preferential treatment in any state or local governments. You can't use any state funds for what they would classify as DEI programs. The sponsor of the bill, Representative Brendan Jones, said on the floor that despite what some critics had said, he doesn't think that this would apply to things like offices celebrating Black History Month or Women's History Month or something like that. That wasn't the intent of the bill, he says. So we'll see.
Okay. And then the immigration bill. And this particularly is interesting because of Representative Carla Cunningham.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about how these became law yet, which is the fact that, as I mentioned, these bills had been sitting on the House calendar for months, and Republicans didn't have the votes to make it happen. But what we saw happen last week was that two lawmakers were conspicuously absent from the chamber. That's Representative Shelley Willingham, who is a moderate Democrat, and Representative Carla Cunningham, who recently switched her party affiliation from Democrat to unaffiliated. Both of them had been criticized by Democrats in the past for breaking with their party to vote with Republicans on certain key issues, and they were successfully primaried in March. They both lost their elections. They're finishing out their term right now. And they took a walk on this vote. They haven't said anything that I've seen publicly about it. They haven't responded to us about it. But they had been at the legislative building just hours before that vote for a Rules Committee hearing, and then they left ahead of the chamber vote. We asked House Speaker Destin Hall about it, and he said that he won't have private conversations that he's had with members, but that he saw he had the votes that day, so he decided to take it up.
And so explaining what take a walk means, it's both figurative and literal. So sometimes it means someone gets up off the floor and takes a walk in order to be out of there when the vote is called, because they either are doing something like choosing if something to pass or not. They could just not want their name attached to it at all, because a lot of how people vote on any legislation turns up in campaign ads from their opponents. So that's sometimes it's actually they are walking, like they're just circling the building because they don't want to be in there. Sometimes they're just not there. And so that's kind of the phrase, take a walk. Some Republicans have taken a walk during a Rules Committee with another bill that hasn't been overridden yet that Governor Stein vetoed, and that's getting rid of most of the concealed carry law. And there were several House Republicans in the Rules Committee before that was passed who were not there, and then two Republicans who voted against it. They are both incumbents, Republican Ted Davis and William Brisson. Talked to them back last year, I guess, when that happened, and they disagree with it because it gets rid of having any sort of basic training to conceal carry a handgun. That was one of the things that they didn't like about it for safety reasons, and those are some of those other reservations. So it doesn't look like anything is going to happen with that unless there's, again, like the numbers game of who's on the floor. Did you all hear anything this past week about that bill?
No, so they were going pretty steadily down the line of overrides that have been on the calendar. The only one they did not take up was the concealed carry bill. But after they finished the first four, Republicans recessed for I don't know, around an hour. And we assumed during that time that they were maybe trying to whip votes again for the concealed carry bill. But when they came back, they ended business. So it ended up not coming to the floor.
Okay. Before we take a break, Jane, is there anything else, I guess, going forward that, or like any feedback you've heard from the university system or from either those in charge of things or faculty or students? Have you heard anything about this?
I haven't really. I mean, I know that I've heard from a few, faculty members that are not delighted by this law. And I think the UNC system itself is sort of still working on how exactly they're going to mesh this with their existing policies. So right now it's sort of a work in progress, and people are sort of digesting, because as we said, like, it wasn't really expected that this was going to happen. So
sometimes UNC system will get ahead of things a little bit if they think it's coming at the legislature, and it just took a little bit longer on this policy ones. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about North Carolina politics and our picks for headliner of the week. We'll be right back.
Electricity. It's what powers our lives, from the ordinary to the extraordinary. Across North Carolina, 26 electric cooperatives serve 2.8 million people, and we are committed to delivering reliable, affordable power. We're not for profit and are driven by service, providing the best possible value for our member owners. We're strengthening the people and communities that make our state great, today and for generations to come. Learn more at ncelectriccooperatives.com.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Jane Winik Sartwell and Kyle Ingram. For our second half, we've got a couple other NC poll things to talk about with a national lens, too. Jane, you were working over the weekend and wrote about this Confederate flag controversy in D.C. What's going on?
Yeah, so right now the Great American State Fair is going on, which is a celebration of America 250, kind of backed in part by the Trump administration. And it has booths for all 50 states. North Carolina previously said that we were not going to participate in said Great American State Fair. Partly that was a decision by the governor. And then private organizations and businesses stepped up to fund and design the booth themselves, because some people felt like we should still be represented at this state fair. And so then the day after the fair opened, a video circulated online of what it looked like inside the fair.
The Spectrum reporter
yes,
video.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Reuben Jones from Spectrum posted it, and it was, it panned around, and you see a Confederate flag on one of the monitors, and this disturbed a lot of people. It was half of the North Carolina flag, and then the other half was the Confederate flag, which isn't, historically a state, like an official state flag or anything like that. So people were mystified, felt like it was sort of not only obviously the Confederate flag, but also this ahistorical kind of situation.
Not accurate anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so people were outraged, and organizers took it down and said they're looking into how it happened. The booth has multiple sponsors, including Richard Childress Racing, which is a racing car company, and Spevco, which is a vehicle manufacturer, as well as Mount Olive Pickles, who was a sponsor but pulled their support for the booth after the video was circulated.
Okay. And then where do you think, I've seen videos of it. It looks like it was like some, sparsely attended, but it's up on the National Mall for a while longer. Yeah,
I think there's at least like 10 more days or something of the festival. So if you can still go if you want to.
Go check out the latest reflecting pool status, which is another thing drawing attention on the National Mall lately. All right. Another thing, latest version of, I think we talked about this last week too, Kyle, the elections bill.
Yeah.
What's going on with the elections bill?
Yeah, so we've still got this big elections bill. It still hasn't gone to a floor vote. What happened last week is that a revised version went to the House Rules Committee. The sponsor, Representative Hugh Blackwell, a Republican, said that he's been working with Democrats, including Representative Pricey Harrison, to take some of their criticisms into account and roll that into the bill. So we saw a somewhat toned down version go through rules where they've sort of come back a little bit on this provision that would have banned election officials from encouraging voter turnout writ large. Now it says more specifically not to encourage turnout for a specific party or candidate. They also got rid of a ban on ranked choice voting, which North Carolina already doesn't have, and they got rid of a ban on paid political petition gathering signatures for that. So there's still some stuff that Democrats don't like in it, and you did see some votes against it in committee from Carla Cunningham, who we spoke about earlier, as well as Representative Tricia Cotham, who's a Republican. We heard complaints that the bill is still just a little bit confusing in these new election rules that it's setting out, and it could affect military voters, as it has some provisions in it about how they send in their absentee ballots and what identification they need to show. So I imagine we'd see another version of it rolled out this week, unless there's been a deal to include these provisions in the budget instead. We'll have to see.
This is all the House side at this point, right? Still?
Yes. Senator Berger has told reporters that he wants to see whatever the final version of the House bill is before he weighs in on whether he wants his chamber to take it up or not.
So it seems like it could be runs, well, I mean, if this is budget week and they're trying to wrap up for some sort of chunk of time, that they would just let this go. But with this stuff, if it is passed, this would be for this year's election?
It depends on the provision. Some of it wouldn't go into effect until 2027.
Okay, so TBD on that, and
Yeah.
you can give us an update next time. Okay, all right, well, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're waiting on everything with the budget, and as of 1:25 p.m. on Monday, it's still happening. We don't have a document yet, so shout out to everybody that's going to read those hundreds of pages, but honestly, probably the biggest shout out for the staff at the legislative building who are putting all of that together right now. So we appreciate all your hard work. All right, so moving on to our picks for headliner of the week. Kyle, I'll start with you.
I traveled back to my hometown, Concord, yesterday to see my family, and I watched The Sopranos for the first time with them, which I know I'm very, very late to the party, but wow, what a great show.
Yeah, it was you already heard all the stuff about like the final show and everything and how it ended. Oh, okay, I won't tell you that. There's a big controversy at the time.
It did. The first season aired before I was born. I'll just put that out there. But.
Yeah, when was that? In the
1999.
90s, I guess. Yeah. So, well, I've been around since then. So I feel like a lot of it live. It was pretty good. Very grim in a lot of ways. So, all right. I will move to something more upbeat for my headliner, which is the beach, which is where I was last week. Thanks, everybody, for not bringing the budget out while I was gone. Appreciate it. But my headliner within that, I was at the Outer Banks, which I've loved my whole life, in beach nourishment, which I learned quite a bit about because it was at a front row seat to it this past week as I watched it move up the beach of where I was staying with family. And it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a big pipe of sand, and they churn the sand out and then spread it out. It also makes the waves down beach or up beach, depending, really look like cement, gray and brown. So that wasn't the greatest for that particular moment. And then people shipped somewhere else. But the Outer Banks is a giant sandbar, so you got to do that kind of stuff. And my cousins in Florida who were visiting said that this apparently is standard in other coastal areas. So anyway, that's my headliner. Jane, why don't we end with you and what your headliner of the week is?
Yeah, I think mine's got to be FIFA World Cup. It's been really entertaining to watch so far. And on Wednesday, the U.S. is going to play Bosnia in a knockout round game. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
My nephews are really big FIFA fans, and so I watched a fair amount of soccer this past week, maybe more than in my entire life. It's pretty cool, I guess. Sort of like, I feel like just the sort of Kane's bandwagon of like, yeah, sure, this looks like fun. It's a big thing, go go home team, which for us obviously is USA in this. Kyle's laughing at me.
No, I was just saying, I love seeing like all of these people from all over the world just like experiencing the Americas for the first time. And like, I keep seeing Europeans talk about how much they love ranch and how they're going to bring ranch home with them.
Oh, I didn't know you'd bring up ranch. Yeah. Well, ranch is pretty great.
Yeah.
And as Kyle fortunately knows, I have a TED Talk about which ranch is better than other ranches and everything. So, well, I'm glad for them. I hadn't heard about the whole ranch, but yeah, I mean, our country is pretty cool. So it's nice that like other people get to check it out. And then you said there's a game, at least one game you're watching this week?
Yeah, Wednesday night, U.S. and Bosnia.
All right. Well, we're out of time. We're going to take a break next week off for 4th of July, and then we'll be back after that. For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan with Jane Winik Sartwell, Kyle Ingram, and producer Kevin Keister. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Under the Dome, sponsored by North Carolina's Electric Cooperatives, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.